Hello and happy Metta Monday. This is a short video created to support you in connecting with the best of yourself. And I'm picking up where I left off last week, talking about my early quarter life crisis when I was in college. I was studying the pituitary gland in zebrafish and realized that I hated working in the lab. It was very antisocial, very isolated work, and it didn't work for me, and it created this moment of, oh crap, what am I going to do with my life? Which created in me a big response of anxiety that I was with for several months and had to learn to get my way out of. And I did that in a few different ways. I was really fortunate to stumble into some resources that I'll talk about today. But I mentioned that I would talk about the science of the pituitary gland and how significant it is that it led me to the path of meditation, but not in the way that you would think at all. So the pituitary gland is a little pea-shaped gland that sits at the base of the brain, kind of right behind the nose at the center of the skull. And it is a master gland. It is part of the interface between the endocrine system and the nervous system. It's part of the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And this is the body-mind connection. So the hypothalamus is right above the pituitary in the brain, and the adrenal glands are right over the kidneys. So this is a really important connection that regulates our stress response. And the pituitary gland releases cortisol, or it's responsible for releasing cortisol down at the adrenals. And it is also responsible for the release of oxytocin, which is a major connection chemical or hormone, and also growth hormone, human growth hormone. And growth hormone is out there a lot these days in terms of its significance in anti-aging. The more that we do, high intensity exercise, human growth hormone is released, and the pituitary gland is part of, mediating that release. So I think it's super interesting that the pituitary gland releases hormones related to stress and growth. I taught a stress management workshop last week. That was the way it was billed, and I just think that phrase is so funny, stress management. Like relax, nothing is under control. I actually said that in the workshop. We're not managing stress, we're changing our relationship to it. And when we look at stress, healthy levels of stress as opportunities for growth, then we have a whole different perspective on life. I said last week to the group, life becomes like a video game, right? So what challenge can I handle skillfully next? And meditation supports that. So the interface between the pituitary gland and the stress response, it's very influenced by meditation and yoga. So I did some research and came across, studies, multiple studies where, for example, mindfulness meditation was proven to decrease the release of cortisol, the stress hormone. Another study of, yoga and meditation showed that the increase of human growth hormone. So we're seeing growth hormone go up, that's a mouthful, and cortisol go down through yoga and meditation. So our anti-aging hormones are increasing, and our stress hormones are decreasing with body-mind practices like meditation and like yoga. And if you think about it, I practiced yoga this morning, and I was in a challenging pose, warrior two. And it is, the goal with yoga is to promote a relaxed effort. So you're with something challenging, but finding an inner ease. And that's the point of these practices, is to cultivate that relaxation in the midst of stress. And so it makes sense that, the pituitary gland, where, again, growth hormones and stress hormones are released, it makes sense that it's involved and that it is so profoundly impacted by yoga and meditation. So yeah, that's the science of this. And for me, another layer of this was, here I am, back in college, anxious, depressed, struggling. And I stumbled across a book called Buddhism Without Beliefs. And my very, agnostic, scientific self at that point in my life when I was 21, really that title appealed to me. And I flipped through the book and I came across the first of the Four Noble Truths for the first time in my life. And I read that we all suffer. And I can't tell you how comforting and relieving it was to understand, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who goes through this. In my book, Faith Underwater, I talk about the insidious nature of suffering and how we think we're suffering alone. And the truth is, we're never alone. The ego and, the way suffering manifests just makes us want to believe that nobody could ever understand us and that we can't, connect through this. You absolutely can. You always can. I've talked in the last couple of weeks about being okay with being vulnerable. And being okay with, de-shaming our suffering. I think so much of why we stay isolated in a place of suffering is because we are, we experience shame or fear of being rejected. And so you can't reach out to just anybody with a challenge. You do have to be discerning and find the right people will be supportive. But just understand that you're never alone. If you are feeling that way, if you're feeling alone, I have a Facebook group called Co-Regulation Nation. We've got almost 100 people. We've been together for about a month, and it is a lovely place to just connect and know that you could post in that group privately and be supported and not judged. And so it's a very compassionate, non-judgmental community. So I invite you to find that or find your own compassionate, non-judgmental community. Ours is free. If you'd like to join, the link is in my bio. So there's my meandering Metta Monday video for you today. I hope you get something out of it. I hope you feel a little bit more inspired to do yoga or meditation, knowing a little bit more about the science of the hormones that are positively impacted by these practices. And I hope your day is filled with beauty and that you move through skillfully. And I'll see you next week.